Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing the last Q&A video for 2021. All of these questions come from my supporters over on Patreon. If you want to get a question asked in a format like this one, or get your question answered in a format like this one, it's pretty much a shoe-in over on Patreon. At least as of now, I do not get enough questions to have to weed any through, so pretty much every question asked gets answered, unless it's something that deserves its own dedicated video. So before I dive too deep into this, I do want to make an announcement of some what I think is exciting news and kind of the biggest news for me going into the end of this year, and that is that I am now married. So Miss OreGear is now Mrs. OreGear. She was very patient. We did kind of have to rush things at the last minute, basically have a family member who is nearing the end of their life, who is a major person in our lives, and we wanted to make sure that they could be a part of it. So we basically did like a little mini elopement at my family member's house, just to do a little family only ceremony so that they could be a part of it. So anyway, big news there, and to celebrate, I'm dipping into a little bit of my good scotch, which is, I guess, relative. This is some Glenfarclas, 12-year aged Glenfarclas. Big fan of scotch, big fan of single malt scotch, big fan of Speyside scotches at that. So I hope this is a Speyside, otherwise that's going to be embarrassing. So without any further ado, and with that news out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into my first question. In fact, my first series of questions here, all from the same person, my friend Edwin, who is soon to be, as of the first of the year, going to be my coworker at the gun store. So he'll be able to answer a lot of these himself, I think, in the following year. So first one from Edwin: do you have any 9mm? And that's obviously a callback to what this last year and a half has been like working at a gun store, where, especially a long time ago, dozens of calls a day asking if we had 9mm. I do personally, not as much as I would like to have. However, things are looking up in that regard, which is what takes us into the next question. Any word on ammo availability improving in 2022? So, my perspective here, again, as a person who is an employee at a gun store, I can only speak from my limited exposure there. Obviously, in different parts of the country, the situation might be a little bit different. However, from my perspective, in many respects, things are trending in the right direction. Availability is moving in the right direction. We are more consistently having certain calibers in stock, like 9mm. We've pretty much had 9mm steadily in stock for almost a month now, probably. However, a lot of that is because of orders placed well over a year ago, and so even stuff like that could be relatively volatile. However, availability seems to be moving in the right direction. We have more ammo on the shelves now than we have in a very long time. That being said, the price on the ammo is not getting much better, if better at all. Pretty much across the board, when we are receiving ammo in from stuff that we've ordered, we are paying more for it than what we used to sell it for. So I don't see costs coming down necessarily anytime soon, and obviously availability is, again, very volatile. Things can change in, well, the blink of an eye, or with the filming of a press conference from the wrong people saying the wrong thing. So, but as of now, things are trending in the right direction. I am cautiously optimistic that in 2022 things will be better, but obviously time will tell there. Next one is, what is the new Eform file, what is the new Eform 4 all about? And I'll direct you guys over to Silencer Shop's YouTube channel. Silencer Shop obviously has been kind of a big proponent of making this happen. They've, to my knowledge, been trying to help make it happen behind the scenes. And they're obviously going to be way more familiar with this than I am. However, from a 20,000 foot view over this, my understanding, basically, as many of us know, eFileForm 1s have been available for a very long time. They tried eForm 4s back in, I think, 2014. Did not last very long. The system was not robust enough for that. However, eFileForm 1s have been relatively successful, and wait times relatively short with that. For most people, right around 30 days, sometimes less, sometimes more. My last one took 124 days, but who's counting? And I also have a coworker who was just at like 112 days when his got approved. And then another coworker that got his 2 consecutive ones. One was 10 days, one was 14 days. So kind of all over the board. Their goal is by having people have the ability to digitally file their forms online. That's going to reduce the amount of paperwork that they have to, have space for, and also make that input of information a lot faster and easier. Also, as a result, probably easier for them to look up that kind of information, but it is what it is. And their goal is by the end of 2022, have wait times under 90 days on the Form 4, and by the end of 2023, have it under 30 days. Now, my assumption is that we will not see an immediate decrease in wait times with this new rollout as of this month. However, as time goes on, I do expect those wait times to start coming down, which is a good thing for everybody. Yes, the NFA is stupid. Yes, there should be no extra process. I'm 100% in agreement on everything there. However, at least they're making an effort to make that system more efficient and more timely, I guess. Again, all of it is dumb. There should be no NFA. Silencer should not be regulated. Short barrel rifle should not be regulated, et cetera, et cetera. 100% on board. But if they are going to have a system, at the very least, it should be more efficient than waiting, 6 to 12 months just for them to stamp a piece of paperwork. And on that note, Edwin also asks, benefits of SBRing a PCC like a GHM9 or a DDM4 PDW. Why spend $200 to SBR it if I don't really have any advantages over what it would be keeping it as a pistol? And so as a visual aid here, I have my Zenith Z5P. This is my little MP5K clone. Now, obviously this is currently in a pistol configuration. However, I have kicked around the idea of SBRing this on several occasions. Hopefully this isn't blending too much in with my shirt here. But so let's start with the benefits of keeping it a pistol. So first of all, as a pistol, at least in Oregon, things are much just easier logistically. As long as you have a concealed handgun license, there's really no limitation of where you can have this. Leaving it loaded, unloaded, anything like that. I can take it across state lines a little bit easier. So if I'm going up to Washington to visit my brother, I don't have to file any paperwork with the ATF. I can just take it in this configuration across state lines, at least theoretically. Same thing going to Idaho or anything else. So it's a lot easier to travel with. Obviously, I'm saving $200 on a tax stamp, and a lot of them come with the pistol brace configuration. So I'm also saving the money over having to buy an additional stock. However, some of the drawbacks to this is I'm far more limited in the type of accessories I can use with this. So the reason I wanted to use this as my example is there are things that I would like to do with this that I cannot do because of the configuration it's in, and namely putting something like a vertical foregrip on this. So first of all, MP5Ks are supposed to have a vertical grip. They just look better that way. However, for me, because I have such a tiny amount of real estate on this rail, this is the rail from Midwest Industries, fantastic rail for these, I have very little space to put things like lights and lasers or illuminators or anything like that. Because when I really started getting into night vision, I wanted my little 9mm MP5K here to be like my go-to nighttime gun, because 9mm subsonic ammo is really easy for me to make, nice and quiet at night, very low flash at night, and I figure being very quiet goes really well with being hard to see. So trying to figure out ways of mounting stuff to this has proven to be more challenging than I would have guessed, because I have a lack of space. Whereas if I had a vertical grip, I could actually free up some space, be able to put tape switches in places that are a little bit more convenient to get to, and make this thing a little bit easier to use in that configuration. Whereas right now, I don't have that ability. Now, drawbacks of SBRing it, again, paying $200, waiting upwards of a month or possibly longer, having to pay a gunsmith most likely to do my engraving on it, and then if I wanted to take it across state lines, I have to file paperwork, I have to wait to get it approved and have it approved before I do that traveling. Otherwise, I run the risk of getting into some legal trouble, which is not something I or most people want to have to deal with. So are there benefits? Absolutely. And in some cases, it's your only option. So a lot of you know that I have a Beretta ARX 100. Because that came to me as a rifle, if I wanted to do a short barrel, pistol wasn't an option. And to my knowledge, there are no pistol variants of the 5.56 guns. I know there's a pistol version of the 22, I believe, but in the rifles, they either came as a 16-inch rifle or a 10 1/4 inch SBR. There were no pistols available, so if I wanted a short barrel, I had no other choice but to SBR it if I wanted to stay within the bounds of what is lawful. So sometimes you don't have a choice, sometimes you do, and sometimes it just makes the ergonomics a little bit more feasible if you wanted to do some fancier stuff, again, like incorporation of night vision. But I don't think it's fully necessary for everything. So as an example, something I'm going to be using as a visual aid later, this is obviously AR-15 air pistol. This is my PWS Mark 111 Pro on a PWS Mark 1 lower. Excellent setup. However, it's still rocking a pistol brace because everything I need it to do, it is fully capable of doing in a pistol configuration. That being said, I do plan on SBRing it just because, just something I want to do. All right, so next one, again here from Edwin. What is your current EDC setup? So it really hasn't changed much if you followed much of my EDC stuff in general. So first of all, my CZ P01 is still my daily carry gun. There's occasions where now I have a Ruger LCP Max, which I will just do for pocket carry if I'm trying to be a little bit more low profile, or just don't want, if I'm just running down to get the mail or going to the local supermarket and I just want to tuck something in my pocket, but I don't want to have a big gun on me, or if I'm wearing just sweatpants or something like that, makes it a lot easier. However, 99% of the time I'm carrying the CZ P01. As far as the ammo I'm carrying, it's the 147 grain Federal HSTs. Just big fan of what that stuff does. There's other good options out there. That's just what I have a reasonable amount of, so what I choose to carry. One of my other big portions of EDC that I'm a big proponent of is medical supplies. So this is my Ricky leg rig. This is actually, my understanding, made, I don't know if it's made by Strike Industries or just sold through Strike Industries, but this is an ankle rig that I've been using for a very long time. Just Velcros around your ankle. I've got some, I believe this is, H&H. This is like trauma shears, but a little bit easier for EDC, just a little bit thinner, and you just got those little shears there to cut or remove clothing if you need to. I've got compressed bandage and some, compression bandage and some Z-gauze in here, tourniquet, and then a pair of gloves, just to, have some PPE in there. And if I'm not wearing something with cargo pockets, this is on my ankle. So if I'm wearing jeans or something like that, or if I'm dressing a little bit nicer, i.e. like for a wedding, I'm gonna have this around my ankle just to have some medical supplies on me. I know a lot of people don't carry medical supplies. A lot of people don't have medical training. However, because I've had even a basic level of, firearms trauma related stuff, like trauma medicine, I would feel really, really bad. And especially again with my wife now, if we were somewhere, something crazy happened, rounds started going one way or the other, or even more likely a car accident or some other sort of personal injury happens, and I have to now watch that person die, knowing that I have the skills to help them, but I didn't have the tools I needed with me at the time. So this just greatly reduces the chances of me being more or less helpless and having to watch someone I love die. Now, is this a complete medical kit? No. Far from it. I don't have NPA in there. There's other stuff that I could probably have that I don't have. However, this is better than nothing and will definitely get me some of the way there. And I do still have everything in the wrapper. So if I absolutely had to, I could use things as a chest seal. Not as ideal as having a legit chest seal, but still, nonetheless, this is a lot better than nothing and will get me through most of the things that I would be likely to run into in my day-to-day life. And then just in case anyone's curious, the tourniquet is a Cat 7 tourniquet from North American Rescue. And then other than that, usually I have a knife on me. I'm super big fan of the Spyderco Tenacious. This is typically my daily carry knife. I'm pretty sure I have a video on these. If I don't, I should, but huge fan of Spyderco Tenacious. Honestly, I find myself carrying Spyderco more often than not, but I also have Kershaw knives. I have CRKT knives. There's a lot of good options out there. I don't like carrying crazy expensive knives. No, not for me. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I always have a flashlight, actually. This is another important thing. So Streamlight MicroStream, this is their Coyote version. This is also USB rechargeable. I need to make a dedicated video on this. In fact, I anticipated making a video about this leading into Christmas because this is a fantastic stocking stuffer at its price. 250 lumens, not crazy bright, but it's also very size efficient, and I always am able to have it on me, which not everyone can say they do, especially with the bigger, brighter lights. And for, again, everyday uses, that thing is more than enough for me. Any news about SHOT Show? Inside info on cool stuff. Let me take a sip here. So I was originally planning on going to SHOT Show. A lot of that was because my wife has never been to SHOT Show, and she really wanted to go. However, we decided to not go this year, or I should say this upcoming year, 2022, for a couple reasons. So first of all, at least as of what is published, they are going to be requiring masks on the show floor, and I have zero desire to film any videos of me in a mask. I don't want to be in a place where I am like being told I have to wear a mask. And then the other big thing is, because it's going to be my wife's first year at SHOT Show, I don't want her first experience at SHOT Show to be everyone complaining about how much SHOT Show sucks. I know there's going to be a lot of companies that don't plan on attending. I know SIG has already said they're not going to go. I've heard murmurs about other companies not going either. That part wasn't as huge of a deal because there are people that I like to be able to interact with in person. However, if I was going to go, I would maybe spend a day on the floor actually interacting with those people I needed to, not filming any videos. I'd be able to make some use out of the range day. However, most of it would just be traveling around, taking my wife around to places like Hoover Dam, that kind of stuff, doing the touristy stuff. And to me, that's just not a wise way of spending money right now, especially with saving up for a larger wedding ceremony later in 2022. So that's kind of my big news about SHOT Show. And as far as any info on cool stuff, I don't know of much. I am not at the level of popularity, I guess, here on YouTube to where companies are really wanting to fill me in on cool new things. There's one kind of thing as far as like in the tactical nylon market that I have heard some stuff. It doesn't necessarily sound too crazy exciting, but I'll probably be doing a more like Zoom style video with that manufacturer around that time, just to cover that, and also do more in-depth stuff about just tactical nylon in general, concepts, ideas, approaches to the market and all that kind of stuff. I think would be interesting. All right, next one from Edwin. Who the F is buying all the guns? I'm extrapolating a little bit from what I think he means here. So gun sales are obviously still higher than normal. Here in Oregon, we have over 5,000 people in the background check queue waiting to get approved on their background checks. It's taken over 2 weeks now, or about 2 weeks for those people to get approved from once we submit them. People with concealed carry licenses go to the front of that line, so it's usually 15-20 minutes. And then some people just are instantly approved, but the vast majority of people are waiting a long time. And I know that this is still a thing in most parts of the country. Availability of many certain types of firearms are still very limited. And as far as who these people are, I can say from personal experience, there is a whole lot of people who are still purchasing firearms for the first time just because of the way the world is going. Honestly, with how busy we were in the early stages of 2020 and how still we were in 2021, the fact that there are still people who don't have guns is mind-boggling to me. However, there's still a lot of first-time buyers. A lot of people hit that point of realizing they need to have the tools of defending themselves at different spots. However, people will usually reach that point. And so we still have a lot of people doing that. We have a lot of people, obviously, who have been buying guns this entire time, who have been owning guns. They just are enthusiasts or collectors, and they just continue to buy firearms. And then it's just people who are wanting now to upgrade from the things that they bought in the early stages of COVID, back in March of 2020. They bought a really cheap Sky pistol, or they bought a High Point, or they bought, any number of budget ARs like a Radical Firearms, and now they realize these things are actually kind of trash, and now they want to upgrade, or they bought a Bear Creek Arsenal and want to upgrade, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of it is people just buying for the first time, or people from that first wave realizing that, hey, what I have is better than nothing, but I really should probably upgrade and have something a little bit better that I can actually trust my life to. So we're seeing a little bit of everything. Again, people who never thought they would ever own a firearm, people who had no interest in firearms ownership prior to COVID, who are now making that decision. And I've heard a lot of people complain about that. I think it's a good thing. Yes, people should be seeking out training. However, these are people who would have either been indifferent to gun rights previously or actively opposed to gun rights previously, who are now realizing that maybe this is something I need. I know there's a lot of, rules for me but not for thee kind of people in there too, but I would like to think that at least a lot of those people will now be on our side moving forward. Next one here from Edwin, consumer trends of 2021. What have I seen at least as a gun store employee in 2021? And again, this is going to be totally limited to my little corner here of the United States and here in Oregon. So trends in other parts of the country may be different. And if you guys have seen other trends, definitely let me know down in the comments. It'll be interesting to see what people are seeing in different parts of the country. However, here, big things that we're seeing, concealed handguns are extremely popular still. They kind of always are, but a lot of people who are getting into firearms, getting into their first carry guns, and really specifically the new kind of like 1.5 stack 9mm, like exemplified by the SIG 365 series, like the XL, the X, and the 365. You have the clones, like some from a company that are so much of a clone that are being sued by SIG. You have companies like Ruger coming out with their Max 9, the Shield Plus. There's a lot of guns coming out hitting that market because that is by far the most popular style of handgun that we're selling and that people are actively coming in looking for, and for good reason. They're extremely size efficient. You have what used to be a gun the size that would hold 6 or 7 rounds of 9mm that now hold 12 to 13 rounds of 9mm. And like I mentioned earlier, my Ruger LCP Max, a gun that would maybe hold 5 or 6 rounds of 380, now that holds 10 to 12 rounds of 380, is really not too shabby for something that easily fits in my pocket and is very concealable. One of the other big trends we're seeing is optics on handguns. I know optics on handguns have been around for a while, but a lot more just your general run-of-the-mill person are getting into optics on handguns. And I think that's a good trend. I don't think handgun optics are like 100% there yet. I think that there's going to still be some growing pains and design changes and all that, but I think we're moving in the right direction. I have one here. This is the Holosun 507C with the ACSS Vulcan reticle. I think this is getting really close, especially that reticle design. I love this reticle design, and I will be doing a video on this in the near future. But then I also like the fully enclosed bodies of like the 509T. I know Steiner just came out with a new pistol dot that's fully enclosed. Aimpoint's had their acro. I think enclosed dots are the future, and I think reticles like the ACSS Vulcan are the future, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. And then, again, other trends, just more people buying ARs, which, again, I think is a good thing. And then last one here from Edwin is favorite pistols, rifles, etc. released in 2021. And while there have been some new releases here in 2021, I think most companies were just trying to keep their heads above water and still maintain the manufacturing output that the market's looking for right now. So I think compared to other years, there's probably been fewer product releases. But again, I've mentioned a few times here, the Ruger LCP Max, again, 9mm 1.5 stacks have been a thing now for a couple of years. However, seeing one in a 380, a still very small concealable 380, is extremely appealing. I have it in a pocket holster off camera here right now. You will be seeing some a review on that again, hopefully in the nearest future. Just 380 ammo is a pain in the ass to find. As far as rifles and other stuff, there hasn't been too many that, not enough to like jump out at me enough to recall them at the moment. I know there have been some cool stuff. There is something that I regretfully really think is cool from a company that I refuse to mention here on camera. But I think that 2022 is going to be the year where we start seeing more new product releases, just because things again seem to be stabilizing a little bit more, for what that's worth. One other thing I wanted to mention before I move on to the next person, as far as EDC, I should have touched on this a little bit ago. My wedding EDC, I couldn't not have a Walther PPK. This is a Walther PPKS. This is one of the I believe Smith & Wesson. Yeah, the Smith & Wesson PPKSs in 380. This was actually a early wedding gift from one of my supporters on Patreon, a guy who's been very, very supportive, someone that I met working at the store. He has been becoming more and more entrenched in the gun world, and it's been cool to watch. And he was extremely generous to donate the PPKS to the channel. And I think it was a perfect carry gun to have while wearing my nice suit for the wedding on actually Christmas Day. All right, so moving now into Matt's question here, which is what to look for in a duty holster and mag carrier for a battle belt. One of the things he's pointed out is it's been 4 years since I did my original battle belt setup video, and he's wondering like what kinds of things have changed. And he's also, because I mentioned a Safariland holster in that video, he goes on to mention that Safariland's website is not the easiest to navigate, and that is something that I am fully sympathetic towards. I have tried getting on their website several times. So I actually still have that same battle belt that I featured in that video those many years ago, and it is effectively unchanged since then. Let me reposition just so I can show this a little bit easier. So the battle belt that I used previously is, again, effectively unchanged. The only thing I did is I added one of the, QLS systems from Safariland. So I'm still running the drop leg. It is further up now. And this just allows me to change between one gun and another a lot more quickly. And I am still using Safariland holsters. Now that I am running an optics ready gun, I have switched to a different style holster from Safariland, and I also switched to what I believe is, I get the SLS and ALS system from Safariland mixed up a lot. What I believe is the ALS, or auto locking system. That is the one with just the little thumb nubbin. You just pull down on the little nub there and draw the gun out. Previously I was using the thumb hood, which again I believe is the SLS, or self-locking system. That one works totally fine. However, I just found that no matter how much I practiced it, I was never fast on the draw. For whatever reason, just that intentional movement of going forward with my thumb, I just never got to be fast. I know there are people who can do it. You watch Milspec Mojo's videos, he can do that thing. He can do both the ALS and QLS systems together faster than I can do just the ALS, or auto locking system. And just for reference, this is a Glock Model 45. I've got some suppressor right sights. I had an optics cut. Again, this is the same one you just saw earlier. I had my friends at the McCluskey Arms Company do my optics cut here, and I had to move my rear sight in front of the optic just to make it so I can use that to rack the gun off of, and also act as a sacrificial buffer for any brass that wants to hit that. But I'm just a big fan of the auto locking system. This battle belt is now actually my wife's battle belt, because I now have a different one for myself. Let me grab that. So this one, I'm now still running a Safariland system. However, this is their mid-ride belt mount. So it sits a little bit taller than it would even with a drop leg all the way up. This is also now more of a minimal belt. This is an Eagle Industries belt with a Cobra buckle, but I can just click my holster in here. So whether I'm running my Glock Model 45, whether I'm running my CZP09, anything else I want to run, it's easy to go back and forth. There's another reason you'll see that I use this ALS system here, or the QLS system here in a second. Still have a medical kit here on the back. And then as far as mag pouches, I'm still running HSGI, but instead of running it down on a drop leg with the Costa leg rig on the other belt, it's now actually mounted up on the belt itself. This kind of goes into the mag carrier question. I'm a huge fan of the HSGI taco pouches. To me, it's just the most effective system to use, especially if you're like me and you're using different guns all the time. So whether I'm running AR-15 mags, whether I'm running AK-47 mags, AK-74 mags, you can even fit .308 mags in here. And especially with the handguns, CZ mags, Glock mags, 1911 mags, any mags I want will still fit. So now, most people obviously aren't running multiple types of setups, so that part won't necessarily be as important to them. However, for me, that is extremely utilitarian, and even then, if I'm running the same stuff over and over, they still work exceptionally well. You can fine-tune the tension. One thing you may have noticed is my original taco mat pouches were kind of the soft nylon-sided ones. These are all the harder, like injection molded plastic style. And that is because I find these to be easier to reinsert magazines, just because they kind of flare open at the top. So again, for what that's worth, huge fan of HSGI stuff. Other stuff is good too. I know the S-Tac mag pouches are really popular, but again, they're just not as versatile. I either have to pick ones that work on ARs or ones that work with AKs. They're not really cross-compatible, for what that's worth. And lastly, yes, Safariland's website really sucks. So really, you just kind of have to figure out what you want. It's not intuitive, it's not easy. And I know there's other good outside the waistband duty style holster manufacturers out there. It's just Safariland has been so good for me that I haven't really needed to look deeper. As far as the qualities that I like, that I look for, it's having some sort of active retention. So that ALS or QLS system's really nice. Again, there's others out there. As long as it's not the index finger one, like on the Blackhawk Serpa holsters, which is a terrible idea and has been demonstrated to be such multiple times. I want something like that if it's a duty style holster, and then also something that's going to effectively protect my my gun, well, specifically in this case my optic. So if I can pull this back off here. Having something like this, which is the shroud that comes up to protect my optic, is, I think, a really good thing. They do also have the RDS style ones that have the little flap that comes over too. This one is not one of those. I kind of wish if I could do it all over again, I'd gotten one of those. But again, Safariland's website is super hard to know what you're actually ordering. And then something, again, that's just going to be a good buffer for the gun. If the grip gets scraped up, I'm not hugely concerned about that. Protects the magazine release so my mag doesn't pop out while I'm rolling around on the ground. And again, having the ability to quickly adapt from one gun type to another with something like the QLS system is very nice to have. So those are the kind of qualities I'm looking for. The camo wrap on this one is a nice to have thing. You guys know I'm a huge fan of spray painting things, so I could take that or leave that. And then obviously it needs to be able to work with whatever light system I'm using, which this one works with the X300. It also works with the TLR VIR2 if you're running night vision stuff, for what that's worth. So hopefully I covered that enough. And then last but not least, I have a question here from Eric that I think is a very insightful question, and that's why I wanted to save this one for last. It is, how has your training / shooting changed in the last year? What gear / firearms did you think you had to have, but once you really started training with it, you ditched it? So things have definitely changed over the last year, and I don't know how apparent that is on camera or in the shooting footage you guys have seen in my videos so far, but there's several reasons for that shift. So first of all, well, let me gas up here again. I just love scotch. All right. So obviously the ammo crunch is affecting everyone. Even if you have the capacity to reload, the primers have been, limited in quantity and excessively high in price. Powder's been relatively unavailable and again, excessively high in price. So even reloaders, I think, are feeling the squeeze, because I've definitely done a lot of reloading myself in the last year. So I'm trying to focus more on lower round count, more intentional style drills, and also making a big effort to do a lot more movement in my training and a lot more work with cover and barricades in my training. And a lot of that is, especially guys who are doing stuff on Instagram and YouTube, we kind of get into this what looks really cool on the range and not necessarily what is a practical skill set to be practicing. So it looks really cool when you can just sit there and, you know, do a nice little hammer drill and pump a nice tight round in, or nice tight group into the chest of a target or into the A zone, and that's a good skill to have and something that needs to be practiced. However, you don't see a lot of movement, you don't see a lot of cover drills, you don't see a lot of that kind of stuff. And reality, as far as I can tell, is that if I'm ever in a situation where I'm having to defend myself, I'm hopefully going to be moving and I'm hopefully going to be using cover. And I feel like the more I can do that in training, the more I'm likely to actually do that in real life. If you've ever taken a force on force class, which I think is the most beneficial type of firearms training you can take, you know that if you stand still, you're going to get shot. And also, if your opponent stands still, they're easier to shoot. Also, you need to know what works as cover, what's concealment, and how to effectively use that. And again, by hopefully doing that on the range, again, I'm just setting myself up for success, because if you don't practice it, you're not gonna do it, no matter how much Call of Duty you've played or how much you've thought through scenarios. If you're not physically doing it, if your body doesn't know how to do those motions, you're not gonna be successful trying it when your brain just is full of adrenaline and you're not consciously thinking about what you're doing. So that's something I've really made an effort to do. And again, hopefully that's kind of coming across. I don't always film all of that because movement drills are really hard to film well, because I'm mostly doing it by myself. And I'm either the camera's gonna go out of focus, I'm gonna move out of the frame, something's gonna go wrong, it just doesn't look as good. But it's definitely something I am doing a lot more often. And again, something I'm consciously trying to make an effort to do. And part of that is, again, just useful real world skills that I need to have. And then also because with a diminished round count, I still want to train, but you know, instead of just seeing how fast I can put a fist-sized group on a target, I want to also induce other forms of physical stress and mental stress to, again, more effectively use my environment. And then as far as like other parts of training, I've been trying to do more night vision stuff, more low light, no light stuff. And this is something that I mentioned in my Broke to Bougie series, which is still ongoing. I have him out. I just haven't been able to make it to the range in over a month now, and it's killing me. I was gonna go today, however, we have a few inches of snow that I was not expecting, and it's just not logistically practical for me to try to get to where my range is with the current environmental conditions. So hopefully that's going to be fixed soon though. But I'm trying to do more white light training, so in low light, no light, because I've done a lot of daytime shooting obviously, and I've done quite a bit now of nighttime shooting with night vision. But even though I have white lights on most of my guns, I don't actually do a lot of training with that. And that's something that I didn't fully appreciate until my Broke to Bougie series, when I'm out there with my white light, kind of like, you know, messing around trying to figure out how to actually activate things and, you know, when to have it on, when to have it off. It's just something I haven't practiced in a long time, and that's just a failure on my part, and that's something I'm actively trying to work on as well. And that's the nice thing about daylight savings time, is we have a lot of nighttime to shoot. And then as far as like gear that I thought I would need to have, but once I started using it, I ditched it. So that's the reason I have my little PWS AR pistol here. So in a lot of footage you may have seen with this, especially when I was doing videos on components on this guy, I had a dual pressure pad up here, one that had actually we rewired so it would work with my Perst 3 up here, my laser illuminator for night vision. And I had dual pads on a couple other guns, and what I found was, especially on shorter guns like this, or my little 300 Blackout SBR, I found that in order for me to use that pressure pad, I was actually taking myself out of my comfortable firing grip and then having to come back basically to a magwell hold to be able to hit those buttons. So I'm moving out of a comfortable position to use it, and then also because of the way that I typically pick up these guns, my hand would very easily ND it or act like kick the light on when I didn't want it to, because there's a lockout on the night vision unit, but there's no lockout on like a Surefire light unless you like undo the bezel or the tail cap, which I don't want to do. And then the other drawback there is unless you have one of these tail caps on, especially the Surefire, that allows you to still activate it without the tape switch. if something rips out or something like that happens, you're kind of SOL. So it just reduces the amount of stuff I have on here. Also, again, with the dual pads, it's very easy, even though you think it's straightforward, to hit the wrong one and ND your white light when you meant to turn on your night vision stuff. Even with the little indexing nubbin on there for your white light, you know, if you're wearing gloves or your hands are cold or something like that, you might not feel that and you might kick on the wrong one. This just almost completely eliminates the likelihood of that happening. If I'm gonna hit my laser, I've got the button on the laser on the back or on the top. If I want to hit my white light, I can hit my white light and do it that way. It's just a little bit more foolproof that way. And that's something that I thought was going to be great because I'd seen it in a bunch of pictures and videos and all that stuff that people are running these dual pressure pads, and I thought that's what I needed. And then when I actually got out there and used it, I found that it was more, not necessarily more harm than good, but it was just too complicated for it to be justifiable. Obviously, just with anything in the gun world, you can train around it and become more proficient with it, but to me, it's training to do something that's not necessary from the outset. It's just adding unnecessary complexity. Now, if I have a longer gun where that light is further forward and it's way less convenient to just activate it by hand, that's where the tape switches are nice. And I'm now of the opinion that I want 2 separate tape switches because, again, I want to reduce the likelihood of negligently discharging it, and anything that has a tape switch on it is going to also have that dual cap, so I can at least turn it on if that tape switch fails or rips out or something. I have a way of activating it without that tape switch. Lastly, I also want to talk about things that have changed kind of in my EDC. Now, I didn't cover this during the EDC question because this, I think this is not an everyday thing, but it's something that I'm trying to incorporate more, and that is low profile, you know, gray man stuff. So this is an Adidas backpack I picked up specifically for this purpose. I'm a huge fan of the Kanai OreGear bags, but I wanted something a little bit less or a little bit lower profile, something that didn't scream like, hey, there's probably gun stuff in here. So this is working in accordance with, and you've probably seen it if you've been following my Instagram, these gray man tactical gear panels. So for example, this is one here that has a multi-tool, extra pistol mag, extra rifle mags, and a first aid kit here, and also a place for me to clip in a QLS system. Oops. So what I can do is have all of this stuff ready to go, organized in a very easy to access way in its own dedicated pocket in this backpack. Now I'm going to be doing a dedicated video on this whole system here, especially these Gray Man tactical pouches. But this just has everything ready to present it. So all I have to do is undo the zipper here. I have my handgun ready to go if I need it. And then I will also typically have, one of the reasons I have a lower profile belt is I can actually have my whole belt in here as well if I needed to. And I can just, once I need to, take the QLS system off of the panel onto my belt. And then I can easily tuck in something like a little MP5K inside the large compartment in here, or even my like Beretta RX 100 with the stock folded fits perfectly in there. And this is just a little bit more of a lower profile, ready to go bag. And then obviously it's very modular, so I can take out panels as I see fit. I can take out other stuff as I see fit. Just so you guys can visually see, this is one of the panels with nothing on it. It also just works as a good exoskeleton, or I guess endoskeleton because it's inside, but just to keep everything formed properly. And also if I have the shape of a gun or something like that in here, having this in front of that keeps everything bulged out to the point where you're not seeing it formed to a gun. You're not seeing the outline of a gun or anything like that. Is it necessary? I don't know, maybe. Depends on the organization you have in your bag, but the last thing I want to be doing is opening up my bag and then trying to figure out, okay, where did everything settle to? Where's the gun actually sitting in here? This, I know as soon as I open up this zipper, that Glock 45 is on the top, or if it's my 19 or whatever fits in that same holster. I can put my CZ holster in there because, again, that QLS system. So it just presents everything to where I know exactly where everything is. I don't have to hunt around or dig around for it. And it just keeps things a lot more organized. And so that I'm trying to do more stuff to If I needed to be out and about with something I want a little bit more firepower with, something a little bit more organized like that, that I can just have on my back, but then also have the tools to now wear it if I had to. So anyway, that is all the questions I have for the end of 2020 Q&A from my supporters over on Patreon. I really, really do appreciate the support that I've gotten over there. I know especially the last month or so, videos have been barely trickling out, if at all. And again, a lot of that is just poor planning on my part to have stuff queued up, ready to go for when I can't make it to the range. However, I do have a lot of cool stuff coming up for 2022. Hopefully very, very soon I'll have some reviews coming out on some different tactical nylon stuff. I'll have a gas mask video that should be entertaining for people to watch, at least if you want to see me suffering. You may have noticed over my shoulder, I'm going to be dabbling in the black powder world. Here in a couple days, we have Cabin Fever 2022 starting. That's another place where that thing's going to start coming into play. But anyway, just a lot of stuff planned, stuff I think should be fun for the upcoming year, and some other fun projects along the way. Also, for those of you who are fans of a certain web interview show involving hot sauces, me and my friend Alex are going to be dabbling into that world to do our own style Q&A here in the near future with that too. So definitely some fun stuff planned for 2022. If there's stuff that you would like to see happen in 2022, whether that be products to review or videos that you want me to cover or information that you want me to cover, definitely let me know. 2021 and 2020, there's a lot of projects I had in mind that, due to ammo availability and gun availability, kind of had to be put on the back burner. Like my long range series has just kind of been dead in the water because just availability of specific types of ammo has been difficult, but I'm working towards that. So hopefully we'll be getting more into that here in the near future. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw in that comment section down below. Again, I want to say thanks to my supporters over on Patreon. Edwin, looking forward to starting to work with you here in the new year. And then again, Robert over on Patreon, I appreciate your gift. This will definitely find its way into some videos in the near future. I just want to give a little bit of standoff to some other big YouTubers who have done content on that recently. And I don't want to feel like I'm aping off of those guys. But again, definitely let me know if you guys have anything you want me to do. Everyone on Patreon, you know, you can always reach out to me if you ever have questions or concerns or anything like that. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. Good stuff.